That's what they taught us in chiropractic school. 80% of your diagnosis does come from history. What is it? 80% and then 10% is from exam, and then the last 10% is imaging and labs and whatnot. Yeah. And they taught us the same thing, and it's correct. It is 100% correct.
Welcome to the Practice Impossible podcast, where your host, Jude Pierre, MD, also known as Coach JPMD, discusses medical practice topics that will guide you through the maze that is the business of medicine and teach you how to increase profits and help populations live long. Your mission, should you choose to accept, is to listen and be transformed. Now, here's your host, Coach JPMD.
All right, welcome to the Practice Impossible podcast.
All right.
With, your host, Coach JPMD. That's me. Thank you for listening to our audience. Thank you for sharing the show. That's the only way we get the word out. And today we have a special guest, Aaron Dixon, chiropractor, who joins us in season 2. And as you know, we here try to help our populations live long by increasing awareness of physical, mental, and spiritual health globally. And physicians need the help of wise counsel, wise business leaders in our community. And today we have live in studio with Aaron Dixon. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can also watch our podcast in season 2 on YouTube as well as Spotify. And Aaron has helped me tremendously, and not only myself, but he's helped my wife with some back issues, and I had some serious neck issues. And,
Yep.
But before we get into the episode, I have to do a disclaimer and a disclosure, I guess. Nothing discussed on this show or any of the shows before should be taken as medical advice or treatment recommendations. Listeners should contact their medical providers for advice. And so I kind of have to say that. So, Aaron.
Yes.
Dr. Dixon.
Yes. You go, Aaron.
Tell me. Let's tell us about yourself.
Where do I start? I've been in practice for, 11 years now. Got a family, was married in 2019 and have a little girl that was born in 2020. She's 3 and 4 months now. And she's amazing. And she's the most important thing in my life, obviously. I don't know what else.
So you lived in Tampa all your life?
No. So I grew up in Virginia. I was there till I was 18, and then I joined the military. I was in the Air Force. So I left home at 18, and my parents ended up retiring down here. So once I got out of the service, I kind of followed them down here so I could be close to my family. And then that was in 2004 or 5. And I went to HCC USF for my pre-med or biomedical science degree, and then went to Palmer College in Daytona. So I've been in Florida since 2005.
So you say you Air Force? Did you fly?
No. This is funny. I was a meteorologist, a weather forecaster. So,
really?
Yeah. So I'm kind of a weather geek, if you want to call it that.
So are we going to talk about global warming?
Yeah.
Climate change today?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, we could. Yeah, I mean, the water's hot. This is the hottest summer I can remember.
So that makes me want to know about, your previous life then.
Sure.
As a meteorologist, you studied that?
Yeah. So the Air Force kind of put us through a kind of like a trade school, I guess you could say. So I was young. I was only 18. So I joined right before 9/11. And I was in Biloxi, Mississippi for my tech school, and it was about 6 months long, and they kind of teach you how to forecast. But you obviously don't have any experience. You just kind of learn the science behind that. And it was actually, looking back on it, it was a pretty good education. And then we went to a hub. There was, I believe, 8 of them at the time. There probably is more now. And the hub that I was at was responsible for the weather in the Southeast, and from Florida over to Alabama, up north to Virginia. And also a section of that hub was responsible for the weather in the Middle East and also Southwest Asia, which is considered the Middle East. And so that was right before 9/11, or right after 9/11, and then right before the Iraq War. And so I was doing weather at 18, 19 years old, doing weather for the troops and the Air Force over there in Iraq and Afghanistan in 2002, 2003, at like 19, 20 years old, not even old enough to drink. So it was a cool experience. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything brave. So, I don't like to be like, oh yeah, I served, like I don't like to, kind of be that way, have the bravado of being a military guy. But at the same time, it was a great experience for me. I think it really forced me to mature in certain ways that I would think my peers might not.
Well, you, how long were you in Afghanistan?
No, I wasn't there. Actually, didn't go. So I was in South Carolina, which is where the hub was, and we did all the weather over there. Because back then, even 22 years ago, we could still do all that remotely and all that. So it was a challenge. But it was awesome. It was fun. I met some great people. I think it really helped me grow in certain areas of my life that, like I said, my peers probably weren't given that opportunity. So
yeah. And so one of the things I always wondered about meteorologists is, where do you get the data from? Because you got to get it from the centralized location, and it seems like everyone is getting fed the same data.
Right.
As a meteorologist, are you predicting stuff, or are you getting predictions from the data?
You mean like models? Yeah. So this is 20 years ago, so I'm sure it's changed a lot. But yeah, we call it model forecasting. It's just, and then also actually forecasting. So, like nowadays, like anybody can pull up a model on the computer and see what's going to happen, right? And really within the first couple 24, 48 hours, it's probably fairly accurate. But there are things that you can look at that aren't going to be picked up on models. And that's kind of the art, I would think, of being a weather forecaster or a meteorologist, is not just blatantly saying, okay, this is what all these models are telling me, this is what the forecast is. Okay. Like actually interpret with satellite radar, extrapolate data from what's happening, 500 miles away and things like that. And that was the art of being a meteorologist. And that was the fun part, because especially over in Iraq, for example, there is no radar, or there wasn't radar then. Back in 2002 or 2003, we had no radar. Like, how you can pull up the radar on your phone? Like in America, we've had radar for 30, 40 years, right?
So what's the difference between radar and the satellite stuff?
Radar is picking up now I got to think about this. Satellite is a satellite looking down, right? And so you have really three things that you see with satellite. You see water vapor. You can see the temperatures of clouds. And then you can see actual visual of what's going on, right? Okay. So you have to interpret those three things to kind of decide what's going on with the weather. Whereas radar is looking at, I can't really give you the science behind that. But
from what I remember with hurricanes, you have to actually have something on the ground to be able to detect what's going on.
That's radar. Radar is looking at, so when you see the reds and the yellows when a thunderstorm is coming, that's really I think it's looking at the density of precipitation that's in the clouds. I could be wrong on that one. It's been a really long time. So I'm
pressing you in things that we're not even here to talk about, but it's just curious.
I enjoy it. Yeah, no, I'm cool with talking about that. But anyways, I guess my point was, it was much harder back then in those areas because they didn't have radar, for one. So you'd be like, is that a thunderstorm or is that just a cloud? I have no idea. And it snows in Iraq. Had no idea. I missed that forecast. I was like, oh man, like that. It's like 2 or 3 inches up in northern Iraq. Totally had no idea, because they don't have any data. Like, no one's kept meteorological or climatological data, or we didn't have anything. So like most of what we have in America, our models are built of over 100 years of data that's been fed into it, right? Mm-hmm. Over there, we just didn't really have that. So we had to really kind of step up our game to kind of get things done right, because over there, there's a lot of helicopters going out to save people, to the helos going out to get these troops that are dying, and so we have to be able to say, hey, can you fly or can you not? That's a decision that has to be made, and our forecast is part of that. So it's not like here where it's like, you can ground the planes and everyone to be okay. Over there, it's like it's life or death. Yeah. So it was a little bit more challenging, I think, for a 20 or 19-year-old kid, really, to do that stuff. But it was awesome. It was really good.
And when did you get married?
Oh gosh, when did I get married? That was 2019. So I had a big gap between when I got out of the service, going to school, and then getting married. So, yeah.
So you went to school.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to school again?
So I went to, when I first got out of the service, I didn't have great high school grades. That's part of the reason why I went in, because it's a whole nother story. But I could only get into HCC, right? Okay. So, but once I had the military background, the discipline that I was taught, it was really easy. School was very simple for me. Like, I learned from every level that you just have to apply yourself and not leave everything to the last minute and it'll be fine. And I was able to do that. And if you just pay attention in class, like that's half of your, like for me, it was like, oh God, just look at this and learn. I'm fine, you know? And, so I went to HCC, got, you know, good grades there, and then transferred to USF. That's where I got my pre-med or biomedical science degree. And I was real proud of myself because I had done well in that school. I remember that a counselor that I had met before I went from HCC to USF, she was like, well, this is gonna be really hard for you. And I'm like, oh, okay, like challenge accepted, you know? And so I remember my goal was to get straight A's. I didn't quite get there, but I was pretty close. And because I had originally plans to go to medical school, and you got to have very, very good grades to get into medical school, as you know, right? Well, for the most part, I'm sure it's.
I was probably.
I was kind of I just really like took school seriously. Like for me, it was like the means for me to like become something, you know. So I was very, very, very hard driven. Once I got to USF to you know get all the A's in all the hard science classes just to prove them wrong that I could do it, you know. So yeah, that was what I did in the early 2000s, and then I think 2009 is when I went to chiropractic school. So I wasn't really quite sure what direction of medicine I wanted to go into. I had toyed around with the idea of being a nurse practitioner, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. I had originally wanted to do nutrition, then I decided that wasn't for me either, and then I was going to do physical therapy, and then I was going to become an MD, and then I just kind of settled into chiropractic. And I remember I had just graduated, and I thought I was going to have to wait about a year, you know, and before I could get into a doctorate program. And I called the chiropractic school, and I was like, you know, what's the deal here? Like, they're like, oh, we can get you in next month. I'm like, all right, let's do that. I'm like, that's easy, you know. And obviously they have requirements for you know prerequisites and whatnot, but there is no entrance exam.
Okay,
so that's a good and bad thing, and we can get into that later. Just as soon as
it was in Florida also.
Yeah.
And
so
which school is that?
It's Palmer in Daytona. So okay. Palmer College was 3 campuses. Now there's only 2, but Davenport, which is what they call the Fountainhead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, the Fountainhead, which is the very first chiropractic school ever, right? And there's a whole history behind it. And they obviously wanted to have more branches of the school, and so they opened one in, I want to say San Jose, California, which is closed, and the one in Daytona, which is blossomed. And that opened in 2003 or 4, and I started there about 5 or 6 years later, in 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And how is that different from DO schools? 'Cause
I don't know. I think DO is probably closer to MD.
Yeah. But I know they do manipulation.
They do. Yeah. I think that they are. I know that back 100 years ago, chiropractic and DO were very similar. Yeah. I think that DO kind of veered off more to MD side, like to more allopathic medicine, whereas chiropractic has been very holistic all the way through. I have no idea if DO is actually still manipulated or not. Okay. I think they do learn a bit, whereas chiropractic, that's all we do. So our education from day one is some degree leading us to become spinal or joint manipulators within 3.5 years.
So the 3.5 year schooling. Yeah. Is there a board that you take? Or?
Yeah, national boards. Yeah, there's 4 parts. The boards, there's people that don't do well on those. I was always a good test taker, so for me, it wasn't, I took them really seriously, of course, but they weren't really, I didn't find them that difficult.
Okay. And some of it is going to be, I would imagine that you have to have some practicals to actually manipulate.
Of course.
And
yeah.
Okay.
So the practicals are, a lot of it is like how to take a history, how to do an exam, certain examination tests, and also it was very practical. And I thought that was actually probably the best board we took. That was number 4, was like, because if you can't pass that, you shouldn't be practicing. And I thought that was a very well written type of test to really kind of, and the schools, their job is to get you to pass your boards. Okay. That your entire education is not only built to teach you how to manipulate, but also how to pass boards, because they want 99% of their students to graduate and pass boards. So they did a great job of preparing us for that.
Mm-hmm. And as far as debt or schooling costs, how is that compared to?
Probably the same.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I shoot 200,000 easy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's outrageous. Yeah. It's a lot.
Okay. So then you really have to know your stuff to be able to market and start a business too.
That's when it becomes difficult. Yeah. That's when it becomes difficult.
Tell me about that.
Whew, that's a tough one. So, and I'm sure it's probably the same for medical doctors coming out of school. Like, there's no real business training.
Zero.
So, yeah, there was a little bit. We had one class, but it's not enough, right?
So one class in 3.5 years
for
on
business,
how to run a chiropractic
correct?
business.
Yeah. So, and this is a lot to kind of break down. So let me start from the bottom here. So when I graduated, unlike most of my colleagues, I did not work for anybody. I was like, well, I've always been able to accomplish whatever I put my mind to, right? I've always been able to do whatever I want, right? Mm-hmm. As long as I'm willing to put the work in. And I was like, this can't be any different, right? It's just probably like going to school, passing a test, right? It's I just learn, I listen, and I learn from my mistakes and figure it out. And that's what I figured I would do. Am I too far from this? No.
Yeah, it's fine.
So I just went out, I opened a practice and just got a business loan, which I'm shocked they gave me one, but they did. I actually was working with a management company in the beginning that that was what they like to do, is pick off fresh chiropractors and get them to dive into their system. And then not like a franchise, but very, very planned out kind of procedures and all that stuff. And they helped me get the loan, and then they helped me, find a place and kind of set it all up. Right. So that's what I did, which is unlike most doctors.
So you had a management company help you get the loan, but that management company was also going to take a fee.
They took their cut. So they didn't actually help me get the loan per se, as in like have influence with the banks. They just provided me a good business plan. They kind of coached me through what to say and what to do. They used their prowess to kind of back me when I went in. And believe it or not, the first bank I went into, they offered me a loan.
Okay.
So, and I think the downside to those management companies is they have a lot of ego. So they think that as long as you do exactly what they say, you will be rich, right? And it just, for me, it didn't work that way, because getting into certain things that they like to do. I mean, they're a little real. I won't say who they were, but I believe that a lot of management companies are slightly predatory towards new chiropractors because we have no idea what we're doing, right? Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that it doesn't allow you to always have integrity per se. And so I used them to help me, grow initially, but eventually I was done with that, and I wanted to do things my way, the way I thought was more, ethical, more congruent with my belief system, and allowed me more freedom to treat people the way I wanted to and do things the way I wanted to, and be as upfront, as honest as I possibly could be. And that's the direction I took after working with them for a few years.
So what would you say is a percentage of people who work with a management company like that coming out? 50%?
Gosh, I don't know. Probably. I would think it would be hard not to.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, because think about, unless you have a lot of business experience already.
So 80%? 90%?
I would think so. I think 95% of chiropractors coming out don't work for themselves. They work for somebody else, which is probably the smart thing to do.
So they get hired by another chiropractor who might have gone through that management company also.
It's possible, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So some do, some don't. And there's a company that's for everybody, I'm sure. Yeah. And then there's mavericks out there that will just do it themselves, and that are just business minded, people that can actually, figure it out or know how to make the dollar and cents work in order to leverage the small amount of money they probably have in order to grow their practice or their business properly. So,
yeah. So before we delve into the business, because I'm really interested in understanding the payer breakdown. Yeah. Why is it that chiropractors get such a bad rap?
Ooh, well, that's a good one. So it probably has to do with perception of danger. That's one of them.
Perception of danger.
Perception of danger, correct, right? So it looks scary, or it sounds scary, or it is perceived as dangerous based on the outward appearance of what a chiropractor is doing, right? twisting your neck, popping your neck, doing things like that. I mean, think about if you've never had a chiropractic adjustment before and you walk in and it's usually we're the last option, right? Like I've tried everything else. I don't want surgery. Let's try something different. I can't get rid of my back pain or I can't get rid of my neck pain. I'm in pain. Like this is a scary thing. Somebody's going to manipulate my spine. Like I'm going to get paralyzed. You know, that's a common fear. Mm-hmm. And I like to address that as it's common. It's your perceived, you're perceiving that's what's going to occur. So I have to address that, and it's okay, it's fine. Like that's a normal thing. I hear people say to me all the time, and I just tell them like, it's one, it isn't dangerous. You know, if it was, we wouldn't be here, right? We've had a lot of fighting along the way to become relevant.
Yeah. Or even accepted.
I mean, accepted, right. And we still aren't there, but we've come a long way, I think, as a profession because we just don't really hurt people. Okay. Is it dangerous? No, it's not. It's just not. Right. Yeah. I'm not breaking necks. You know, we're not paralyzing people.
So you've never paralyzed anyone?
No, never. Never
broke someone's back?
No, you can't do that. No. You have to, the spine is strong. You know, there's a lot of ligaments and muscles that protect it. Like I could probably strain somebody if I adjust them too hard. Yeah. But no.
But you're going to be taking a history because I know that when I saw you, I mean, you took a thorough history.
Absolutely.
You asked me questions. Yeah. You almost didn't want to manipulate because you weren't sure what was going on, and you told me to do some exercises.
Yeah. I try to, and every patient's different, right? And I'm trying to remember how you came in, and I do remember that I knew you had a disc thing going on there. And a lot of times manipulation is helpful in a short-term palliative aspect when you're dealing with discogenic pain like that. So, you know, obviously we want our patients to feel better, and I want them to feel better as quick as I can. But
so let me pause you there because you said I probably had a disc, or you
right.
said
I think so.
Discogenic issue. Yeah. Let me tell my audience that I never had an MRI.
Right.
I didn't have an X-ray. Dr. Dixon took a thorough history and understood that it was a discogenic problem based on what he asked me and how he examined me, which I think is really important for people to hear, because a lot of times I think we flipped medicine around. When I went to medical school, it was 80% of the diagnoses were obtained from a history and physical. Mm-hmm. Only 10% was labs, 10% was X-ray. Correct. Now we flipped it where 80% is actually MRI and X-rays, and only 10% is talking to the patient history and physical. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important for audiences, even though you may not be wanting to get advice from me, and I don't want to give you advice, but I think it's just wise for you to understand that in medicine, you have to go to a doctor that's going to actually listen to you, take a history, and examine you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
you're right. And that's what they taught us in chiropractic school. Yeah. 80% of your diagnosis does come from history. What is it? 80% and then 10% is from exam, and then the last 10% is imaging and labs and whatnot. Yeah. And they taught us the same thing, and it's correct. It is 100% correct. Yeah. I used to, going back to that management company, they would say, take X-rays on everybody, because it was a way to
generate revenue.
Generate revenue, but also it generate revenue in the way of not just because you can bill insurance, but because you can convince the patient they need to see you a lot based on the X-ray findings that you find. Yeah. Okay. And a lot of people don't talk about that, and this is probably going to rile some feathers.
It's okay. We're here to practice impossible.
I do believe that is a large portion of the reason why some chiropractors take X-rays. Now, I understand it is a great screening tool to make sure you're not going to hurt that patient, but I'm trying to think of maybe hardly ever in the last 11 years have I taken an X-ray and it's said don't adjust that patient. It just, unless you're dealing with like an acute fracture, you're not going to really, or you're dealing with like, say like, what's it called? Os odontodium, which is where the dens is missing. Like, or there's like actual, like, you know, the patient has RA and that, gosh, I'm trying to think what it's called, but there's a ligament that kind of keeps the dens from pushing back against the spinal cord with flexion. Like, that is something that would say don't manipulate, but that's usually with an RA patient or somebody that might have some ligament or synovial damage there. Yeah. I just don't, I've never seen it. Yeah. You know, they make it seem like everyone is going, you got to take X-ray on everybody because like they're all going to have stuff, and it's just not the case. And so, I will only take imaging when it's clinically necessary. Yeah. Right. I just won't. I understand that some of my profession will do it because they like to do line drawings to know their direction of adjustment based on their technique, and that's fine. And that's their technique, and it's totally okay with that. But I just, for the way I treat, it's just not necessary unless I think there's some pathology there that is going to keep me from treating that patient.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I don't think we took x-rays on you. I can't remember.
No, we didn't take any x-rays. You saw me fairly frequently, and I had not been to a doctor that often.
Right.
But I also was in a severe amount of pain. I mean, if I go to a doctor, then it's got to be something serious.
Sure.
I'm still playing soccer, and I probably injured it there somewhere.
Right.
But I saw some improvement. I saw that you weren't looking to send me to an orthopedic surgeon for surgery.
Sure.
So I felt it was important for me to continue on the treatment plan that you recommended. And you explained to me that it was going to be over a couple of weeks, that I shouldn't play soccer. I shouldn't do certain things. And, after a while, it got better. I actually listened. I know. It's crazy.
Gosh, I love it when my patients listen, right?
But I also had the privilege of seeing my wife go through similar things, and she did some exercises. She didn't have any imaging, and she got better. And so now I've done the things that I need to do to keep that from happening again. So how do we educate our physicians, our other providers to understand that that's what we need? We need to involve you in the care of our patients because it helps.
Yeah, it does. It does. For me, I like to, most patients are going to be more educated than they were 30 years ago because they have the internet, right? They can, and that's a good and bad thing, right?
Yeah, it depends on what websites. If the websites are filled with pharmaceutical ads, then you're not going to have them come up with a chiropractor, on the side of the webpage, non-surgical or medicinal treatments.
Well, there's a time and place for, and I do refer out for surgery.
Yeah,
for sure. There's a time and place for everything, right? There's a time and place for narcotics. I'm sure there's a time and place for epidurals and facet blocks,
but it shouldn't be the majority.
No, it shouldn't. It
should be the absolute minority.
Absolutely.
And we need to be able to coach our patients on being able to look at other modalities and not be afraid, like you were saying. And it's all about education. And that's what we're trying to do here is educate not only our patients, but also really the providers that are afraid to go that route.
Absolutely. Back to I want to circle back. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about when it comes to MRIs and exams. And I think a lot of doctors, if they are good at a history and a good exam, they don't need an MRI, right? And the thing is, patients, they think that is the most important thing to get. And so most major medical insurances are going to fight you on ordering MRIs. So I know most of the time, they're going to say, you need to have 6 weeks of conservative treatment before we will pay for an MRI. So I have to tell the patient, I'm like, X-rays are useless. I'm not shooting radiation at you, so you have to either pay me more or your insurance company has to pay me more for no clinical reason. And they're like, okay, but MRI is the imaging of choice if we really want to prove that there's a soft tissue injury or a disc injury, but your insurance company is probably not going to pay for it. But we're going to get you better before 6 weeks. Anyways, that's our goal. And if we're not, you're out of the office. I'm sending you to ortho, probably.
Yeah, what I see in some of my patients is that they just won't go. They won't go, and they won't pay that $10 copay or $15 copay. It's insane. So sometimes I see some of these things happening, and I need to get an MRI so that I can go and get epidural or pain management. So it's interesting to see that, and I think it really has to come from education.
Yeah.
And
patient education is tough, and this is something probably newer practitioners, this is good information for them to hear because. I mean, we're all guilty of not hearing everything that's being told to us, right? Yeah. And I think that most of your patients, they're not listening to you. So you have to be very simple in what you say. You have to be very focused on what the patient wants, which is how long is this going to take to get me better? How much is this going to cost? And what can I do or what can I do, right? They're really, I mean, we're all selfish creatures, right? They're wanting to know, they don't want to feel pain anymore. They want to know how long this is going to take. So patient communication is it's an art. It's an art, and it's not something you'll learn right away. You have to get good at it, I think, and I'm still learning.
Yeah, and you have to actually do the work to get good at it also. It's not going to just come to you. Yeah. So you have to go to conferences, you have to take courses, you have to speak to people who are more knowledgeable than you, and so I think that's really important. And that, if you do that, that's how you build a better business as well.
I agree.
Because then patients will trust you and come back.
It's the harder way to build in the sense of it takes longer, but it's more fulfilling and it's more what's the word I'm looking for?
Self-fulfilling
it once you get a certain like X number of patients that have had a good experience with you, and are happy with your treatment, then it cycles
snowball.
On. It's like a snowball. Yeah. A snowball effect. Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that, a lot of practitioners, especially in the chiropractic world, they're like, oh God, I open a practice. I need X amount of patients in the door now to make my overhead and pay myself, right? And they're looking at like, I need to squeeze as many visits out of everybody that walks in the door as I can. The problem with that, it's like steroids, right? Yeah, you'll build up quickly, but you'll not be self-reliant. Yeah. The practice will be, once you take the steroids away, the practice is going to fall apart because no one's going to, refer to you back themselves or their family and friends, because they're going to be like, well, this guy made me come in. I was feeling good by like 4 visits. He made me come in for 10 more. I didn't really need those, and then he tried to talk me into coming and see him, every once a month the rest of my life, And I think that sometimes that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, because people know like when they're being sold, right? We just know, like we've been around the world long enough that we know that somebody's trying to, I don't want to say take advantage of us, but when somebody's like, trying to get a little bit more out of me than car salesman, all that stuff. And I think that once patients realize your main intention, your only goal is to give them relief, pain relief, or resolve their issue, or help them, as whatever it takes, right? Yeah. And if you can't, find them someone that can. And when people actually believe that, and they know that that's you're genuine about that, over time, then you just grow. Your business grows because they're going to tell their family, their friends. They're going to remember you when you when it happens again, because it neck pain and back pain, it's going to come back probably. They'll remember, and then when their cousin or their uncle slips their disc out in their lower back, they're going to be like, you know what, go to my chiropractor. He got me better as quick as he could. He was honest. There was no fluff. There was no BS. It was just, let's get you better quick. And that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's how I practice now. So.
Yeah. So what's your payer mix? I know that some chiropractors do MVA, personal injury.
Yeah.
Are you doing it?
I do that. Yes, I do personal injury, motor vehicle accidents. I would say that my pay, like the volume of what I guess my pay, if you talk about two different things, talk about how much money we have coming in versus what type of demographics of the patient there are. So I would say I'm probably like 30% cash, probably 40% major medical, and the rest is motor vehicle. All right. But motor vehicle is a larger portion of income, of revenue, right? Mm-hmm. It just pays better. I honestly don't know that breakdown. Yeah. I think I should, but it's probably at least 50% of revenue. And
so that's where you get your agreements with your lawyers and what do they call it? LOAs?
LOPs. Yeah. So LOPs, that's another long discussion. That's been changed because of the laws that were just written. LOPs are something that back in the day we would have the patient sign so that...
What does LOP stand for?
A letter of protection. Like it's a medical lien, basically. Yeah. So, like if you take an auto accident patient, right, say they don't have any of their own personal injury protection, and a lawyer will say, hey, like, can you just hold your bill? Don't bill the patient. Just hold it. And then when the case settles, we'll satisfy your bill, right? But a letter of protection help protect you so that like say you're working with somebody that you didn't know, they couldn't settle the case, pay off the patient, then you're left holding nothing, right? Yeah. And so that was kind of the way things were done years ago in Florida. Now there's some law changes that are kind of precluding attorneys from wanting that signed. But if you have a good relationship with an attorney that you're working with, you shouldn't have an issue with that, right? They should, because it's all about good business practices.
Yeah. Establishing relationships.
Absolutely. And they know that, and we know that too. At least I hope most of my profession knows that. But motor vehicle, here's how I look at it. Those patients need care, okay? And I want to provide them pain management, pain relief without them having to do things that are more aggressive, like getting cut open. Now, some of them have to because they're, they have too much injury, right? But I really want to be that provider that can give them the best pain management with conservative treatment versus, ablations or, having disectomies or things like that. And of course, there are times when that's needed. And I will say there's always a few times a year when I have to, I've tried everything I can and they got to go see an orthopedic. Okay. But motor vehicle accidents are generally more lucrative than other types of patient care. But there's also more risk with them because say, sometimes you get a case, it might settle for zero, there might not be anything there. And so sometimes you have to take hits like that where there's nothing there and it is what it is. It's part of the business. Yeah. But for me, I don't really think of it that way. I like to think of it as, I'm going to take good care of this person, get them feeling better, do the right stuff for them. And eventually they will, they'll probably come back. They'll refer somebody, and it is what it is. Sometimes you have to write a lot of money off, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And I think if you have a good personal business plan as well, I mean, if your household is, if you're not spending millions of dollars at home, and
buying the car you don't need. Yeah, I get it. No, we're all guilty of that. That's for sure.
I am too. So there's another, I think it's a revenue stream for you that you have, and that's team physician, team chiropractor for the Rays.
Yeah, so that's, I think that's more of a revenue stream in the sense of, it's a good marketing, right? Yeah. So it's to say that that's what I do. So I'm one of the team chiropractors for the Tampa Bay Rays. So
cool.
I just got that opportunity this year. It's awesome. It's amazing. And it's once in a lifetime, really.
So how did you get that? I mean, if it's not confidential.
A colleague of mine is already there, and he just said, "Hey, you want this opportunity?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I do." I would say no to that. But after doing it for already half a season now, I tell you what, it is incredible. It's a great organization. The players are amazing. Everyone, it's a great locker room. It's a great staff. I can't say anything bad about them, honestly. It's been such a great experience. I just go in there, I treat them, and everyone's real appreciative. And then I go to the game afterwards. So it's great.
You get good seats?
Yeah, I do. They're great. They're great seats. Yeah. So it's, my wife really loves it too because, she likes to go to the games and she likes all that stuff too. Yeah, so she's,
that's awesome.
Yeah, she likes it. And so it's been awesome. And I hope they bring me back next year.
So how many do they have usually?
How many
chiropractors?
Yeah, I think there's, they have 3 active chiropractors there. But we all no one travels with the team. So we're just kind of splitting up a few days when they're home. So I don't think there's a chiropractor there every day. They probably don't need one there every day, but we're not really doing, I'm not managing, issues really. I'm just kind of there to provide adjustments. Mm-hmm. So, cause they have such a great training staff there that they're dealing with all these soft tissue injuries that's not really my wheelhouse anyways. Yeah. So I just go in there and just adjust them, it's great. It's fun. It's awesome. I mean,
awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool experience. So, and I think it's helped me in private practice too. Because obviously I was a little bit nervous when I first started, it's like, wow, I'm working on these $1 million athletes. But I think it's in that my staff has mentioned this to me that my level of confidence might have increased without me realizing that it was just to say that that's what I do. And then having to do that and do it well and be like, wow, this is like, I really have, I don't want to say arrived, but like I feel more arrived, I guess, within my profession.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what would you say to your younger self? The one thing that you would tell your younger self.
Yeah. So
what the heck was that?
Be an anesthesiologist. No, I'm kidding.
Don't go into medicine.
Oh yeah. Be a plumber. No. Oh, that's terrible. No, depends on what year. Let's see. If it was right after chiropractic school or right during chiropractic school, I would say work for somebody else.
Okay.
Because I would have probably be doing better now if I had to work for somebody for 4 years. They don't pay well. You're not making good money, but it's probably the same as residency, right? So it's,
So you live like a resident.
Yeah, exactly. For 5 years and learn the business side of things, make your mistakes under somebody else's office instead of like when you have to make X amount of dollars to keep your doors open, I think that would have been what I would told my pre-business self. And if it was pre-chiropractic, I would probably tell myself, I that's a good question. I would be hard pressed to be a chiropractor, I think, only because it's it's pretty difficult to, I think, be successful within it. I think there's much easier directions within medicine to be financially successful.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how fulfilling those areas of medicine are mentally, right? So the best part of what I do is my interactions with humans and able to help them. That's the best part. That's what makes it okay. The business side of things, I'm not a fan of. I'm sure a lot of doctors or chiropractors probably agree with me there. But the fulfilling nature of what I do, I don't know how that would compare to other types of medicine. Is it as fulfilling to be rheumatoologist? I have no idea.
Yeah.
What about radiology? You're not really dealing with people, right?
Yeah.
I
so
do
it
love
depends
it.
on the personality type.
Yeah,
Also,
it does,
the temperament.
exactly. Or surgeon. Like how great is is that? Are they happy? I have no idea. Like I consider myself a happy person, right? Yeah. So there's not just, you can't just look at things as like, how easy is it for me to make $1 million? Right? Like you can't always look at it like that, because you could work 80 hours a week doing something you hate and maybe make $1 million. Who knows? But do you really want to do that and just hate what you do?
Yeah.
So that's going off on a tangent here. I'm kind of going around in a circle. So I guess
I think we get it. I think we get it for sure.
Right. But yeah, if I was to, I would probably tell myself to make sure that I pursued something that was. If I was going to choose a different side of medicine, to maybe do more shadowing of those physicians in order to see if that is something that I would enjoy doing, so that not only am I making good money, but I'm also loving what I do. Like those two things, like how often do you think those match on most people? Probably not hardly anybody, right? Where in any profession, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, I am making really good money and I really love what I'm doing. Like they both come to, like, does that happen? I don't know. You know, I think my buddy I was telling you about earlier that he does the picking, the where he goes to the garage sales and picks stuff.
Oh,
and sells
yeah.
it. Like, he loves what he's doing and he's doing pretty good, you know? And it's like, that's like, most people don't ever like do that, like follow that.
You definitely want to arrive that. You want to arrive there, because I think if you do that, then that's where it's easy to make money too.
Right.
Like it's not hard to go to work.
Yeah.
We were talking about the podcast. I mean, I actually like doing this stuff.
Right.
I like educating, like talking to people, like helping other people. And I think if I didn't, then I probably wouldn't be doing this. I probably wouldn't be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I always tell younger people, I have a patient now who's younger, and he always asks me like things about what I'm doing, and he tries to pick my brain, which I think is smart. And I'm always like, I always tell these younger folks, I'm like, do what you love. Yeah. That's the most important thing. You got to do what you love.
Absolutely.
You got to find something that you like to do and be the best at it. And then chances of success are going to go up much higher than if you were like, well, my dad was a lawyer, so now I have to be a lawyer. Yeah. Well, maybe you shouldn't, because maybe that's not what you love or would like to do. So
and then focus your intensity on it, right? Yep. So you got to focus it over time, and that's what's going to bring you success. Right. I mean, you can't do it's not going to be overnight,
right?
But you also have to focus on it,
right?
So
I hope that wasn't too.
No, you're fine. Fine.
I tend to go off in tangents. It's hard.
So I've been doing some things in season 2. Rapid fire is what we call it. And just ask you 10 questions.
Let's do it.
And see one-word answers.
Gotcha. Oh, one word? Oh, God, that's going to be a difficult part. One word?
One word or a phrase.
How about an entire paragraph? No, I'm kidding.
So, favorite book?
Oh, man.
And these are the easy ones.
So. They got stumped me on that one. What have I been reading lately?
I just read fiction. It could be fiction.
Yeah, I just read a book by this guy, Peter Zeihan. I forget the name of it. It's his newest book about deglobalization of the world. I'm like super interested in that. I got into that by watching a Joe Rogan podcast where he was on. I'm like, this guy is like, the stuff he was saying was like mind boggling. Yeah. So right now that's my favorite book, which is like not what most people would agree.
I'll have to research that and get the title.
It's his newest book. Anyways, I can't think of the name of it.
Cool. Favorite sports team?
Oh, this is easy. Well, I should say the Tampa Bay Rays. And I tell you what, I've become a super huge fan of baseball this year and of that team. But I guess my childhood team was formerly known as the Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. I was diehard, still am. It's tough to be a fan of theirs, but that would be my favorite team.
This one when Joe Gibbs? Joe Gibbs.
Yeah. Joe Gibbs is great. Yeah. Gosh, that was the golden years. I was young though. I mean, They won a Super Bowl in 1991, so I was like, 9 years old? So I don't really remember that much.
Actually, my claim to knowing Joe Riggs is
Joe Gibbs.
Joe Gibbs is when they had the earthquake in Haiti.
Yeah.
There were no flights to Haiti.
Right.
We were doing a mission trip.
Oh, okay.
And we went down to South Florida, and Joe Gibbs had donated his planes to go down to Haiti.
Wow.
For relief missions.
Was this before he was coach? Oh, was he after he was coach?
After,
yeah,
I think it was 2010.
2010.
So he was doing the racing.
Right.
So it's a Joe Gibbs racing team.
Oh, that's cool.
His planes flew us down.
He's
to
a
Haiti.
good guy. Yeah, I think
heart.
You wouldn't find anybody in Washington D.C. that would say anything bad about him. Yeah. So he's a local hero. So
cool. A bad habit that you have.
Cell phone use.
Okay. One thing your wife really loves about you.
Oh, is he tough? Oh gosh. My humor.
She really loves about you.
I hope so.
Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, we love to cruise. We're cruisers. So we anywhere in the Caribbean.
Caribbean? Okay.
Yeah, we're when you say vacation, the cruise ship.
Cruise ship? Okay. Which cruise line?
Oh, that's a good one. Carnival for a long time, but I'm not a huge fan of them now. They've kind of gone downhill. So I just went on a Royal Caribbean cruise actually, and it was awesome. So that might be my new favorite. So.
Okay. Dream car?
I'm a simple man. I like trucks. So probably a Ford Raptor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Last movie you saw?
I just watched Flags of Our Fathers again. I love World War II history. So
I was hoping you were going to say Barbie.
I want to see Oppenheimer. I wanted to do that, and it's like 3 hours and 15 minutes long. It's like, It's a long movie, yeah. So I was trying to talk to the wife. I'm like, hey, let's go watch this. And she's like, it's too long. I'm like, ugh. I have to wait till it comes out on TV.
All right. One thing you would absolutely change in the world if you had the power to do so.
Oh, geez. Okay.
You had all the power. You have a magic wand. You want this changed.
I mean, it's like you got to go with the big stuff then too. I mean, like obviously the easy answer is like world hunger, and oh man, animal and child abuse.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
Yeah, the one spiritual habit that you have that you practice
that I practice.
Yeah, spiritual habit.
I don't want to say meditation, but I do spend a lot of time, like especially in the morning, is doing just spending time to think. Like no distractions, just kind of, I think that's a really good habit. A lot of people, we don't ever take the time to just take away the distractions and just, okay, let's think about where I'm at,
Yeah.
And that's, I think your best decision-making comes during those times. So
absolutely. And this may be a little hard.
They're all hard.
Who is the fittest player on the Rays baseball team?
Fittest player? Probably, I mean, they're all in great shape.
Careful now.
Yeah. That I've worked on, probably the pitcher, Tyler Glasnow. He's in great shape. Yeah. Yeah, but those pitchers, they have to be. They all have to be. Like, I mean, I guess if you're probably the most out of shape would probably, I'm not going to say anybody on the team, obviously, but you think mostly are the pitchers that are not pitchers, the hitters, the guys that just are home run guys, they don't have to do anything else. So, but yeah, no, there's everybody on that team is in great shape. So
awesome.
Yeah.
This has been a great episode.
It has been good. Okay, good. I'm glad.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
sure.
And,
how long have we been doing this?
We've been doing this about 50 minutes now.
Oh, faster than I thought. All right, cool. Did I answer everything?
I think so. Unless you want to add anything to your fellow chiropractic students coming out.
So chiropractic students, if you're out listening to this, man, I made a ton of mistakes. I did everything the hard way. So hopefully I can provide some value for you. But when I was in school, I thought that I had to learn every little thing, right? Like learn every technique, learn every type of chiropractic. There's a lot of different branches of chiropractic, right? I thought I had to do all of that. And really you just got to find something you like to do and then really hammer that and then work under a doctor that does that. And do that until you are not only good clinically, but you're also like have some business acumen, and then branch out and start your own thing.
That's great advice.
Yeah,
that's awesome advice.
Sure.
How do we find you?
So I'm in Northdale, Tampa. The name of the practice, it's a mouthful. It's a Tampa Back Pain Relief Chiropractic. I chose that because that's what I do. And, we take anybody, Monday through Thursday, no Fridays. So I'm good there. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
So we'll have you'll have your information in the show notes.
Sure,
for sure.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you coming on the Practice Impossible podcast.
Yes.
And if you haven't done so, leave a review. Tell your friends, tell your chiropractors, tell your other doctors that we are here to help you understand the business of medicine.
Sure.
And to help your population live long. Because if we can't take care of ourselves, then we can't help our own patients. So thank you again for having me.
Yes.
For coming on.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.